I believe that whatever way you see life, that's the way life presents itself to you. You think about the world we live in now was created by a past consciousness, past people's ideas of what the cities should look like, what roads should exist, what buildings should exist. And now we're living in that world. So it's important to have a positive vision of the future, which is technologically advanced, but there's a lot of nature and of a symbiosis between technology and nature. So I think it's important to look at what your own beliefs are so that when new things come to our consciousness, do they really represent the world?
This is the Human Future Podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology and spirituality with some of the world's brightest minds. Together, we paint a vision of the desirable future and discuss the actionable steps to make that vision a reality. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Today's guest is Alex de Carvalho. Alex has a very diverse background. His father was a diplomat, leading to a childhood of frequent relocations to various countries such as Algeria, Ghana, Iran, Russia, and Brazil. Later in his career, Alex co-founded a company that later became a publicly traded company. He also worked in multiple executive functions in marketing for companies like IBM and Constant Contact. During our conversation, we delved into topics such as conscious leadership in business, visions of the future where technology and nature coexist symbiotically, and much more. Very inspiring conversation. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you for coming. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this experiment, if you will. What an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think it all aligned perfectly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been such a pleasure knowing you all these years, and I'm so impressed by what you've built here. And there's so much technical proficiency in what you do in the studio here.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me as a guest.
Amazing. I think we should kind of jump right in. So the topic of the intention that I'm setting for this conversation is for us to find threads about future that is very desirable. First of all, painting the future that we are aligned with, and talking about different elements that describe that type of future, and also actionable steps. What do we personally need to do to bring that type of future into reality, and also letting the listeners, maybe giving them some insights and ideas of what can they potentially bring into the world. The way I see it also, vision of the future is this picture, if you will, like this picture somewhere in the distance, and it's like a puzzle. It's a big puzzle frame that's put together, right? And each guest that I invite have their own domain of expertise or unique perspective. They carry a particular puzzle piece from here into the future, and then they basically, with their own experience and knowledge, painting just the segment of that future, because they're an expert of how do you bring a particular detail about the future that I'm knowledgeable about. So you have your own unique kind of role in painting the part of the future that's part of the great picture. Because if, let's say, somebody is in health and wellness, why should they talk about tech per se, right? So they should really stay in their own lane of expertise, but it would still contribute to that big picture.
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I think it would be useful for us to start by you sharing a little bit about your journey, some of the important elements of your maybe transformational journey that would make sense in this format, in this conversation. Maybe sharing some background of like moving to different places and adjusting a little bit about your childhood and then your role now. So give me a little intro of your journey so far.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a typical Brazilian Finn. If you've never seen one, I'm a typical one. My father was Brazilian, and my mother's from Finland. I was born in Paris. My father was a diplomat, which means that every 2 or 3 years We moved countries from a young age. So I've lived in Africa, in Algeria, and Ghana. I've lived in Iran. I've lived in Russia, in Moscow, in Brazil. And when I was about 12, my parents separated, and I came to Miami for my first kind of stint here. I spent about 12 years here. I then went to study business school at INSEAD in Paris, and then I remained in Europe for a number of years, and I came back to Miami about 15 years ago. So really from an early age, I've been traveling a lot and having different cultural experiences. And also my experience is that life would change for me dramatically from overnight through no fault of my own. Because my father would get a new posting in a new country, then I would obviously have to move, go to a new school, and learn, a new language, and make new friends, and new cultures, new music,
Crazy.
foods, everything. So I think, I don't know what the experience is of being from one place and always having lived in one place. So I don't know if that's better or not. I do feel that my experience is one of having to be open-minded to new cultures, new experiences out of necessity, because that was my life. So I had to kind of open my consciousness to new things and be ready for new things.
And then how long were those periods when every time you would move, how it would be like different years, a different amount of years?
Yeah, usually about 2 or 3 years in each place. Every time we moved.
Yeah. And that was pretty challenging, I would imagine, for you, as like you need to adapt, or was that part of the norm? That was your reality?
That was my reality. So I didn't know anything else. I'm also an only child. So really, I really only had myself to rely on, apart from my parents. And it was a different era back then because there was no social media. There were no mobile phones. Even my first mobile phone was when I was 24 years old. So, there was no way to, it was a snail mail way of keeping in touch with old friends. So there's no Facebook or Instagram to keep in touch.
Wow. Are you still in touch with any of the people that you kind of met along the journey when you were a kid?
A few, but very just like a handful.
For sure. Yeah. I'm sure it was fairly difficult because they probably were in a similar boat. They were also moving around, probably, right?
So my father put me into the French school system, the Lycée Français, which is a worldwide system. There are two really worldwide systems: the British system and the French system. And so usually the kids that went to those schools were kids of expats, military kids, diplomat kids, that kind of thing.
Right. And then you're later the ambassador of Finland. How did that come about? Like, what's your?
Well, yeah. So just a quick correction. I'm not the ambassador.
I'm sorry. What's it called?
It's called the Honorary Consul of Finland. Yes. So as the Honorary Consul, it means that this is not a career position. So it doesn't mean I'm not a career diplomat. I'm an honorary diplomat, which does mean I represent Finland in South Florida, in the 4 counties here in South Florida, and I help with, I help people who need help, Finnish citizens that need help, either Finnish citizens that live here or tourists that come here and who might lose their passport. So there's that kind of, let's say, administrative type of help. There's also the help in creating business ties between Finland and the U.S., and also sometimes advising on those. And then also there's a diplomatic corps in Miami, which includes career consuls from other countries, like from Canada has career consuls here, and France, and then other honorary consuls. And so there's events with the Chamber of Commerce and other diplomatic events that I attend.
I see. And you've lived in Finland for some years?
Actually, I lived in Finland for 1 year. I did my military service there, which was mandatory.
Right.
So, yeah.
It was mandatory by who?
Well, to keep my Finnish citizenship, I had to do my military service.
How was that?
Well, it was cold.
Cold, yeah.
And pretty rough. Prior to going there, I was living in Miami.
Yeah.
I had just finished college. And going to Finland was a whole different thing. Not only because of the language. I do speak Finnish, but they put me in the Swedish-speaking base of the Finnish army. Um, there's one single base of the Finnish army which is only Swedish-speaking, because a part of the population is of Swedish descent in Finland. And it was rough. It's the military. It's not easy.
Right.
Boot camp is rough, and then it was very physical. I spent about 200 days in the forest out of 300. 200 in the forest.
Wow.
And it was cold.
Through different seasons.
Yeah, through different seasons. But the winter there is like a Chicago type of winter.
Cold, yeah.
And also it gets very dark. Actually, there's only like a few hours of sunlight during the day in the winter.
So you would like stay in the base, live in little huts or like little homes?
Well, the base itself was, it was nice. There were buildings.
Yeah.
But then we would spend a lot of time in the forest for a week or two at a time.
Right.
So every month we were spending.
And where would you live when you would be in the forest?
So we would live in tents.
So
we would pitch our tents. Sometimes we had to pitch tents on ice, which meant we would have to break the ice, which would take maybe an hour or two at the end of a long day of running around in the forest with equipment, then getting exhausted already to the tent and then having to break the ice and then pitching the tent. And then also, of course, because it gets so cold, we had kind of like a fire inside the tent, like in a container, and which meant that every half hour, every hour, you would have to look over the fire as the others slept. So we would have shifts.
Right. So the fire continues and it doesn't burn whatever.
Right. And so it keeps burning so that, if the fire goes out, it gets cold pretty quickly.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's an interesting, unique experience that most people never had.
Yeah, I promised to myself that I would never say it was a good experience. I remember one day in the army, I was just thinking to myself, I will never tell anyone this was a great experience. But now in retrospect, I'm so grateful that I had that experience. I made some great friends and I learned a lot of things, a lot of discipline. And it was an amazing, thing to live through, experience to have, and stories to tell.
For sure. And share with me your career experience up to. I'd like to capture the moment of transformation, but also give a little background of what journey you've gone through, and then there's a moment of kind of transformation and where you are now. Like what does that look like?
Yeah. So after the army, I went to the army at the same time as the first war in Kuwait, the Kuwait War. Iraq had taken over Kuwait, and then there was this coalition. So that was back in 1990. And after that, I wanted to have a career in finance, but the banks were not hiring. And I really tried, but there was an advertising agency that did hire me. So completely different career path. So that was one very clear fork in my career, was going into advertising and marketing, despite having a vision of working in finance. But that was fantastic because of the experience of the clients that we had, the government of Mexico and Aeroflot Airlines. And if you can sell Aeroflot in the U.S., you can sell anything.
Right. And where were you there?
I was here in Miami.
In Miami, yeah.
And so after that, I went to INSEAD, a top business school in Europe. And from there, I then worked in consulting at a top consulting firm doing business consulting.
Which one?
Well, it's called Towers Perrin, which is known for kind of employee, like HR consulting. There was a strategy, so I worked in the strategy division, and then it would go into HR plans, compensation, executive compensation, types of work.
Also all here in Miami?
So no, that was in London and Chicago. And then I moved to Paris, and I spent some years there. I got married and divorced in Paris, and no kids. And over there, I co-founded a startup, which is publicly traded today. It was an email marketing startup, and which was early for email marketing. And so prior to that, email marketing was really known as spam. So we had to create kind of the foundation for ethical email marketing based on a book called Permission Marketing by Seth Godin. So we really opened up that industry in France and in Europe. And after that, I was working in different kinds of startups. That led me to a position in the original startup called IBM, where I worked for a couple of years as the head of social media worldwide at Z Systems, which is the mainframe division of IBM. I also worked as a regional director for Constant Contact, which is an email marketing company here in South Florida. And also ran a startup of about 20 people in the hearing aid industry, preparing for hearing aid sales online, which are now the FDA approved to sell over-the-counter hearing aids. And at the time, we were preparing for that. So those were some of my experiences.
Wow, yeah. Quite a range of deep experiences in kind of corporate world where you've gained a lot of knowledge and expertise in
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue. So I recognized that, through my diplomatic upbringing through my father, and also through my education and through the corporate experiences I've had, this represented some kind of a deep programming that I learned. All kinds of norms and behaviors and how to be and what does success look like. And about 10 years ago, I started kind of on a different path, on a parallel path, which included meditation, included yoga, early morning sadhana at 4 o'clock in the morning, daily for 40 or up to 90 days in a row. And also I found a, let's say like a tribe, like a nature tribe, a hippie tribe called the Vibe Tribe. And I started drumming with them, djembe drum. And so these were very different from the corporate experience that I had.
Yeah.
Very different from my upbringing.
Yep.
And also very different from the social scene in Miami, which here is very much, can be very much a party town. Also lots of drinking and lots of, the clubs and stuff. And these experiences, the yoga, the Vibe Tribe drumming circles, really represented a different type of sociality, different way to, go out and enjoy, much more nature-based and also kind of inwardly focused.
Yeah. Was there a moment of a break where you recognized that the way you've been running your life is not working anymore, and you need to get some kind of transform, or you need to change your ways of being?
I would say that it was kind of like one of my childhood experiences of going into a new culture and learning new language, foods, culture, etc. This was like that. It was finding a new way of understanding life, a new way of living, how other people live life outside of this corporate kind of programming that I had.
Yeah.
And it was an opening of consciousness to other possibilities and other ways of living. And really for me represented kind of a question mark of how do I navigate these two worlds which are so different? How do I show up authentically in these two worlds?
Yep.
And kind of it's easier to show up as a business person in the hippie world than to show up as a hippie in the corporate world, which, so... But how do you then navigate authentically these different types of audiences, people, and situations, environments?
Yeah. What have you discovered in navigating those two worlds? What are the some of the ways how you were able to be in both? Like, what's some of the realizations for you? Like in terms of, did you have to change your ways of being, or maybe a certain level of acceptance for particular group to be able to still function in both worlds?
I think what this really connected me with my heart much more.
Mm.
And one very simple example is that the kind of corporate networking events I would go to, people talk about work. And people ask you, what do you do for a living? And almost in a self-interested way, as in, how can you help me out? Or maybe I can help you out. And it's kind of, that is the conversation that I was having at these corporate events mostly. Whereas in these other communities, no one asked me about work. No one asks anyone about work. You know, maybe some people don't work, but it wasn't about work. It was about who are you, and are you a nice person?
Yeah.
And can I trust you? Those kinds of values, rather than how can I get something out of you? And for me, that's much more of a heart-centered way of living, rather than a very kind of logical way of like trying to figure out what I can get from you. And I think that that opened up some kind of authenticity in me and how I show up in the world in general, and becoming more aware of that, aware of the conversations I'm having.
Right.
Why am I having certain conversations? And kind of raise my consciousness around that.
Yeah, I see the opportunity for like almost like a hybrid model between being all corporate and profit-driven motives, so like, oh, what do you do? Can we work together type thing? And the other way, where who are you deep inside on like the emotional level? I think there's a version where if you are tapped into your purpose and you're really spending most of your energy and time on a professional level pursuing a particular mission, I think there's a place to talk about what you do and how we can collaborate to bring a better future together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I learned from the corporate world is it's a lot about doing. There's this very strong masculine energy of doing activity, which is valid. And what I learned from these other communities is about being. Who are you? Without actually doing anything, who are you? And I think there's a marriage of both that's needed. It's both energies of doing and being. And how do you show up in the world? And actually, when you start to show up in certain ways, when you speak in certain ways, the things you speak about, it starts to attract certain types of people to you and opportunities to you, which is beyond just the activity of doing, but actually showing up and being.
Yeah. And how would you describe yourself as a being? Like, who are you as a person of being?
Yeah, that's that's a good question. I think that's a self-discovery process. What I recognize is that I had been deeply socially conditioned and programmed through my education, through the media I watched, through my parents, through religion, through all kinds of different kind of veils of programming, I would say, that clouded my vision of reality. And as I started to lift each of these veils, I got closer to who I am and what my own values are. And I discovered a great love for this planet, just the miracle of being alive, of actually having a body on a planet, and not just any planet, a beautiful planet. I think that is a miracle that we overlook in our busy lives. We overlook the very fact that we are here, and kind of a wish to help preserve the planet in some way and work towards that.
You're seeing yourself, from what I've heard, as it's almost like a force for change, for positive change. Is that kind of how you're seeing yourself, as just this being that's channeling higher consciousness into the world?
That's a really I think deep point. One of the quotes from Rumi that has most affected me and inspired me is the one where he says that yesterday I was clever and I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise and I just have to change myself. I think there's great wisdom to that quote. I think it's a quote that as you develop in awareness and consciousness, it starts to mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize that I am part of the collective consciousness. And as I clean out my own shadows and, as I kind of work on myself, I'm helping to clear out the collective consciousness so that when I show up in certain ways and behave in certain ways with people and clean up my own behavior, it creates a ripple effect out. And I think that's an important change for me that has been beneficial for me. And I think as people do that themselves, it creates an incredible, let's say, not only ripple, but tidal wave in the world.
Yeah, beautiful. I'd like to now steer the conversation more towards the future. That's kind of the whole point of this podcast, and the effort that I'm putting out is really to start painting the picture of the future. The first part, it was useful to have the frame reference of who is speaking, what perspective do they have, and I think we did a great job to kind of outline some of your experiences and perspectives. I'd love for you to share your vision of the future, and then we'll talk about some ways how we can potentially achieve or attempt to achieve that type of future. So for me, start with the vision, the best case scenario vision for humanity. How do you see it? Like, try to paint some details that are relevant to you, or important to you.
Sure. I think this is a really important question because we, humanity tends to look at a lot of media, and the media will show us images of the future. And many of these images are dystopic. So there's cyberpunk, which is kind of cool, but it's also very dystopic. So if you think about Blade Runner, the movie, it represents a future which is very kind of bleak. It's very technologically advanced, but kind of very bleak. You don't see nature anywhere. I think it's important to pay attention to those kinds of images because it represents a kind of conditioning or a programming that we start to believe in. Also, our religious programming might make us believe in the end of times, like some kind of eschatology, some kind of apocalyptic kind of future. Is that true, or is that a programming that exists? I think it's important to look at that, like look at what your own beliefs are, so that when new things come to our consciousness, do they really represent the end of the world? Does AI represent the end of the world? Well, it's something new. We're scared of it. It's easy to think that this is the end of humanity, but not necessarily. So it's important to have like a vision, and I think a positive vision of the future. For example, instead of cyberpunk, there's also solarpunk. So if you think of the movie Black Panther and the city Wakanda, it's a beautiful city which is technologically advanced, but there's a lot of nature everywhere, and there's kind of a symbiosis between technology and nature. So that's a very positive view of the future, and I think it's important to keep that in mind as we're working in our lives towards the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you said something about, oh, is this true? And I think it's all about the probabilities. So the more energy we put into something, the more true it becomes. We're attracting that particular version of it by projecting media, ideas, language, everything that we're putting out into this world just increases the probabilities of that type of scenario happening, and the more real it becomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we think about the world we live in now was created by a past consciousness, past people's ideas of what, the cities should look like, what roads should exist, what buildings should exist. And now we're living in that world. So it's important to think about what is it that we're thinking about? What do we envision? And we each start to create that in the future.
What challenges do you see humanity has? What are the biggest challenges that you see that prevents us from manifesting that type of future?
Yeah, I think that entrenched views, not wanting to try something new. So minimizing risks and thinking about, well, this is the way things have always been done. This might apply to fossil fuels. This is the way it's always been done. There's no other possibilities. I think that kind of entrenched thinking is a big challenge to moving forwards. I think if we start to think about new types of possibilities, new technologies, I think, and we start to try those out, I think that's what's needed.
This kind of, would you call it, like a stagnant mindset that's not adapting to change. It's like very monolithic way of perceiving reality and not adjusting to the new reality is kind of in the way of change, right?
Yes, and I would say that it has a lot to do with overthinking, like kind of using the left brain too much, the rational left brain too much, and not connecting enough with the right brain, the more visionary, intuitive, creative right brain, not connecting with the heart. So just kind of running the world through very logic and measured kinds of ways, rather than considering more heart-centered ways, or how to bring the heart into things. I think indigenous tribes have a lot to teach us because they live in good symbiosis with nature, and so I think for them it's just not only the brain but it's the heart as well.
And how would you bring that type of change into corporate world?
So what's on my mind a lot is conscious leadership, and what does that mean? And how do you get there? How do you create conscious leaders? I think there's a personal transformation process towards consciousness and towards conscious leadership. I believe it takes inner work. Different types of modalities exist to do inner work and to discover who you are. What is the programming that you're carrying around, and is it useful, and is it serving you, or are there other ways to see the world, and really expanding your self-awareness and consciousness. And that creates a better leadership, I think, in the world. And this then goes into conscious businesses that are making good decisions for people, planet, and profit. So it's a balance between, your people, the employees, the customers, the planet itself, and also profitability. So all stakeholders are taken care of. And I think that, and I lost my train of thought there.
Basically the way to bring the new consciousness into the corporate world is through leadership and changing leaders' perspective, or expanding leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that today there are initiatives like ESG and DEI initiatives, which are good, important. It's a step in the right direction. But sometimes it can be more like window dressing, like a marketing ploy, rather than, these initiatives can be measured. But when I talk about conscious leadership and conscious business, it goes many steps beyond that. It's the business itself is making good decisions. And an example would be like Patagonia, for example, would be a business like that. So I think, maybe not all aspects of conscious businesses and conscious leadership can be measured. And so this is why I talk about it's not just the rational left brain measuring brain. It's also the heart, but you can feel, what's happening. And I think there's a sea change to get there. And it starts with the individual. It starts with executives doing inner work. I think that's the first step.
Yeah. Do you see yourself ever going back to corporate as a corporate leader that has you are a conscious leader who's moving a certain body of effort into like having a team and building a product, but being of a very conscious leader?
I think corporations are the levers of change in the world. They hold so much power and control so many resources and money. Some of these corporations are worth trillions of dollars, more than many countries.
Yeah, sure.
They employ hundreds of thousands of people.
Yep.
So I think they are the true levers of change nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they can, they can affect great change in the world, great transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to um, acknowledge and recognize
Mm-hmm.
and work with corporations.
Mm-hmm.
So would I be a part of one or not? I don't know.
Mm.
I do have the long career in corporates.
For a reason, I
Well,
think.
for a reason. I think, it taught me a lot about how corporations work.
Yeah.
And so now, so I'm seeing this in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
But one way or another, I think I will always be involved with businesses and helping in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. I believe that the more experiences we can incorporate in whatever we are pursuing at the moment, the closer we are to our dharma. Because I believe that everything happens, I'm sure you did too, for a reason, for a particular experience. It's not a random little sequence of events that you have nothing to do with. All of it is like you got to learn over here, learn a little piece over here, because if you evolve enough, you will recognize that all of those things were extremely necessary for the role that life was preparing for you down the line. And the more conscious you become, the more you can recognize how you can utilize all of everything that you know, not just like the new version of you.
Yeah, I love that. Whether it's true or not, I find it a useful kind of framework to believe that I chose all of this. I chose all these experiences. I chose my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I chose this education. I chose these experiences
Mm-hmm.
because it's leading me somewhere, and I had to go through that.
I think so. I believe that, and personally, it really helps. It gives me more meaning to life in anything that I do. You always look for meaning. It fills life with meaning. It's a good frame. I mean, can you prove that that's the way it is? I don't think you can. What's the word? Have an empirical proof that that's how reality works. But if you truly believe in it, you will really start noticing the evidence of this theory, like of this belief system. I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe that whatever way you see life, that's the way life presents itself to you. And so what I mean by this is that if the way you see life is with materialism, like scientific materialism,
Mm-hmm.
like I see objects and
Right.
they're real and I can measure these objects and that's all that exists and there's nothing else going on.
Right.
Well, that's the way life is going to present itself to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you believe in other types of things,
Mm-hmm.
like invisible forces,
Mm-hmm.
astrology,
Mm-hmm.
and that they have a say or they have an influence in your life,
Right.
well, that's how it's going to be. And you're going to pay attention to the planets and what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to draw conclusions to your own life, and you're like, wow, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way your life will play out.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever it is that you believe, the universe will show back to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important. And, I think there's something else you said, which is about meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to derive meaning from life. It's easy on this path of greater consciousness or awakening
Mm-hmm.
to come to a point where you say, does anything really matter?
Right. Right.
It's all a video game anyway, and it doesn't really matter. And I think that's a trap. That's a nihilism kind of trap.
I agree.
Or also solipsism, like I am the one that creates all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are traps, and you can lose meaning in those traps.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's not really that way.
Yeah.
There is great meaning. Like
Yeah.
to choose to come to have this experience on this planet is
Yeah.
a strong decision. And you get 80, 100 years to do so.
Yeah.
And so you might as well enjoy and make the most of it while you're here.
100%.
You can have your greater awareness and consciousness,
Yeah.
but still recognize that you have a physical body and a physical planet, and you can do things here.
I see. So there are two basically sides of the spectrum. One is there's no meaning at all, nothing matters. The other one is everything has meaning. Everything is meaningful. It's just the matter if you're able to recognize what is meaningful about this particular thing. And I really connect with that view of everything has meaning. It's so much more enjoyable to live life that way. In fact, I feel like both of them you can prove, with clear I don't know, science clear. Both of them are theories that you can't. There's no clear answer. Why not to attach yourself to the one that makes you feel better? I don't.
Sure. And I think you can also integrate all of this. So it looks like a spectrum of, nothing means anything and everything means. But you can also see it in another way, which is kind of like an onion with layers of an onion. And so like at the outermost layer, I identify with the physical world. I identify with my body. I identify with my possessions. And this is who I am. And this gives me identity, and it gives great satisfaction. So my ego, right? So that is the outermost layer. And then like the innermost layer would be like, I am universal consciousness. And, this is all a video game. This is all my creation.
For sure.
And so you can navigate between those layers and successfully and recognize that, I'm here in this world. I have to pay my bills. I need to do certain things. And also have moments of meditation where, you can be in that universal space.
What does success look like to you? What is success? Like if somebody's successful, how would you, what are the prerequisites of success?
I would say that my definition of success has changed over time.
Yeah.
And now it's about deriving meaning out of life and enjoying the time I have left on this planet, being of service to others and to the planet, and defining meaning through that.
Yeah, so there's a very intimate, close relationship with meaning. The success is like a younger sister of meaning, or
yes, I would say success is because you see my identification with success, I believe, is no longer dictated by my ego. And it's more about the acknowledgement and recognition that here I am on this incredible planet, and there are other people here, and let's make the most of it, and also let's help others and being of service to others. I derive satisfaction from being of service to others. I've been a teacher for a while before, and I get great satisfaction from that. So I enjoy it.
For those who are kind of deep in the corporate world, but they starting to recognize that there might be something greater than just, doing the corporate job and doing the regular things that society tells you to do. They're sensing that there might be something greater to life. Since you've gone through a journey of your own, and you've gone through your own realizations of greater purpose and greater meaning to life, what are some practices would you maybe recommend people explore to be able to get more, get closer to that realization and to changing their way of being, maybe?
Yeah, I think there are many practices, so I can speak about some of the ones that I've done
That
myself,
helped you, yeah.
and that have helped me. Really, meditation was key, especially in the beginning. And I started with just, I would say, even 5 minutes a day, for a little bit, 5 to 10 minutes a day, using the Headspace app many, many years ago. But that quickly built up to a 20-minute daily practice, and even up to an hour, and sometimes a little bit longer meditations. I think that was really key. And they say meditation is the greatest gift you can give to other people because meditation really starts to affect you so deeply that it's a gift because your behavior changes. And, you become more self-aware.
Right.
And so you're behaving in better ways with other people. So it's really a gift to humanity when you meditate. But that opened the door to other types of practices, yoga, Kundalini yoga, with early morning sadhana practice at 4 a.m., which was very, very interesting and good. And I continue to do that at certain times of the year. And also, drumming has been really important for me. Drumming is djembe drumming, happens in community with other drummers. And so you really have to get into sync with the other drummers before you start to even create your own beat. You have to understand the beat that's going on. And it's really a way to connect with your heart because a drum beat is like a heartbeat. And so you're no longer thinking rationally about things. You're just kind of existing and letting be and playing your sound. Self-therapy with things like internal family systems and inner child healing and connection, and also Jungian depth psychology with archetypal work and also dream analysis and active meditation. Jung has been an amazing influence in my life. Reading the Red Book was important. Indigenous practices, so doing a vision quest and doing now participating in the sun dance have been very important ways. Vision quest is a 4-day foray into the forest in isolation with no food and no water. So it's a really deep, long type of meditation.
Super intense, yeah.
Yeah. And the sun dance is a different type of Native American type of ritual for men only, which is very interesting and very empowering and very liberating.
Could you say a few words about that experience? Like, what is that for those who've never heard of it?
Yeah, so let's say that from the Vision Quest, I really drove home something that meditation had already shown me, is that I am not my thoughts. I happen to have certain thoughts, but, I could have other types of thoughts. So I am not really my thoughts, but they happen to come to me. And the Sundance took that a little bit further to teach me that I am not my body. I have a body. I'm grateful for this body, but I am not really my body. There's something else that's behind it, running the whole show. The Sundance is also 4 days without food or water. It's more active than the Vision Quest because you're out in the sun dancing, and there's a drum beat, and then there's a little more intense type of practice which involves a little bit of sacrifice. And so it really it makes you really committed and think about how did I find myself in this situation,
right?
But then also finding out that you can make it through, and the dragon that you had built up in your mind wasn't as big as you thought, and
I guess those practices also really bring you to the present. Like you can't be somewhere else while those types of things are happening. They like ground you really strongly to the present.
Yeah, and also this idea of community and brotherhood, really strong, which is outside of work, like outside of your family setting or friends. This is something different, and there's a really strong kind of communitarian brotherhood kind of bond that's created.
Yeah. What other elements about the future that you think would be important to talk about? We often go into the topics of AI and implications of latest technology. Maybe that's the topic we can touch. What do you think of AI, and what do you think of the trajectory so far we've experienced?
I think AI is very fascinating. It's interesting. It's coming now at this moment. I sometimes wonder like about the timing of things and what that means, and how is it that that's showing up now, and why. And also I pay attention to the stories around AI, And also there seems to be a lot of alarmist and apocalyptic kind of thinking about that, which I don't subscribe into. I think AI can be a force for good. I think there are certain dangers, but I think we can overcome those and mitigate those. And I think that with AI, we can create something, there's a possibility to create a great future with the conscious, heart-centered use of AI.
Have you thought about like the best use cases for AI? What can AI help us with?
You know, AI is a different type of technology because it works in all use cases. There are applications of AI in absolutely everything, from healthcare to business to art to agriculture. You can use AI in all industries and all human endeavors. So I think the best case for AI is actually learning how to interact with AI and how to adapt AI for what needs to be done, and how to have the kind of the intelligence of AI and machine learning help us do better what we need to do.
Do you see us having more physical relationship with the world in the as we're going into the future, or less and less physical? So the reason why I bring it up is I see a trend of us, especially the way we interact with technology, is becoming more and more ethereal, if you will. Before, as simple as like physical buttons on the phone, cell phone, and then later it was just a tapping on the screen. That's what we're doing now. And then eventually it will be just looking, and then maybe that's how we interact with it. And so it feels like that's the general trajectory of it becomes less and less physical, and maybe that's also a trend of the evolution, of the human evolution, becoming less and less physical. Do you see that, or do you have a different view?
Yes, I think that we have to look at organic timelines and synthetic timelines. And what I mean by this is that the Earth has nature. There's nature, and we have a body which is made up of nature, and we have intrinsic capabilities, organic capabilities, our five senses and more, which we can develop. And, you know, we may be able to develop other senses that we've been conditioned to believe we don't have. And so there are stories of people who've lost their sight and who have been able to develop echolocations, just like bats have echolocation. People who've lost their sight have learned how to click and understand the environment they're in. So these senses can be developed. So it's my contention that if we had not been conditioned to believe that telepathy doesn't exist, we could actually develop telepathy from an early age on. And I think about indigenous tribes that are able to read nature, understand the wind, and things like that, which I, who've always lived in a urban environment, I don't have that experience or even teaching.
Right.
So I believe that we are capable of much more than we give ourselves credit for.
Sure.
And these are organic timelines. However, we tend to rely on synthetic timelines, on technology to augment us. And so let's have a machine do for us what others may have been able to develop on their own. So I think we have to be careful about this over-reliance on synthetic timelines and how we're augmenting ourselves. Now, there are things like pacemakers, which are inside our bodies, which are very useful, extend the lifetimes of people, hearing aids, eyeglasses, contact lenses. So those are augmentations, and they are very useful. And how can we argue against those? They improve the quality of life. But now we're getting into tricky territory when we're talking about artificial intelligence, transhumanism, cyborg people with all kinds of implants to help in certain ways. I believe Neuralink wants to implant a chip into your brain and even download your. So I think we're getting into shaky territory there and going into totally synthetic timelines. I don't know that the future of humanity is of being a cyborg or android or synthetic. I believe in organic timelines, using technology, but not becoming totally transhuman.
Right. And what's the definition of synthetic?
So
you,
synthetic
in your
is
terms?
man-made.
Okay.
Kind of, of course, everything is made from nature.
Mm-hmm.
Even these screens and microphones are, made from elements from nature,
Mm-hmm.
but they're synthetic. In other words, nature wouldn't grow a microphone. We had to create a microphone. And so synthetic timeline is using these technologies that are not nature.
And genetic engineering, is that or where do you put that? What category do you put it in?
Yeah, that's, I would say that, I would say that's synthetic.
Synthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I actually don't see the distinction between synthetic and organic. In my world, in my view, everything is organic. Some of it is still, so basically, throughout the evolutionary process, the process that usually happens is basically a lot of variations of options, and then only the ones that are sustainable will stay around. So nature constantly is making a lot of mistakes, basically, and it chooses the one that is designed for whatever environment that is. So it's like what's the word, it basically mutations and things like that. It's constantly introducing new variables into the pool and finding the ones that are stronger or more fitting to the environment, right? And I believe that potentially what you are calling synthetic is just in the making mistake phase of us figuring out what works and what doesn't, and then the things that do work will be incorporated into the nature part. So maybe eventually we'll recognize that the let's say we're creating cyborgs out of ourselves, but maybe instead of embedding a metal device, the device that we're embedding completely mimics nature, and it's made out of organic material, and we're able to manipulate it in such a way that's fully integrated in our own body. You know what I mean? And I see that's the most advanced technology, is the one that's completely mimics nature and it fully integrates. There's no issues with integration issues, you know?
Yes, I understand. So this is kind of a evolution. So we're continuing just normal evolution through these inventions and innovations. I understand that, it's hard to argue against technological progress because it brings so much quality of life. And, today we live like gods. 300 years ago, people wouldn't dream of airplanes and, the internet and, communicating with people halfway across the world. It wasn't even thinkable back then. And so it's hard to argue against that.
Yeah.
Now the pace of innovation is so great, and there's so many positives, like in healthcare and patient outcomes, thanks to these technologies.
Yep.
I also believe that we have an inherent, innate capabilities that we can develop that can transcend technology. And already this human body and this planet are incredible technologies that we would never be able to invent.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's what technology has been doing all along. It's like mimicking what already is part of nature, and that we're trying to basically have a certain part of a certain behavioral thing from nature on demand, so we can replicate. We can turn a button and it's there. For example, light, right? Like instead of relying on the sun, we have invented a candle, so we can carry around the sun. Or music, same thing. Like first we would imitate different animals or different sounds of nature, because I feel like there was an innate desire for humans to have it on demand, like have it in their pocket that they can bring it up anytime they wish.
Sure.
Yeah, the technology is just the most, I feel like the most advanced technology is the one that's the closest to natural way. And I agree with you that we have, uh, let's say, um, built in us, our essence will never be able to be replicated by technology. It's almost like this a game of catch. Like basically, the more we discover about ourselves, the that how would I describe it? It's a constant chase of technology to human essence. We discover something about ourselves. We like, oh, we can just put an implant and then replicate certain thoughts uh, on the physical level. But then the more we do this, like we're discovering more about who we truly are. We're not a physical body. We have a physical body, but our essence is not physical. And the current modern technology is far away from even attempting to like understanding what that non-physical part of us is. Uh, but I believe in the future, future versions of technology will be able to integrate with the spiritual part of us. It's just we're so like technology is really kind of behind the where the consciousness is, like where we recognizing that, oh, we are a spirit, but our tech that we've built is still dealing with matter, you know.
Sure. And it's not just spirit, but we also have a nervous system, and it's really easy to dysregulate our nervous system, even by just having a few cups of coffee too many. It already dysregulates our nervous system. And when we think about the stresses of the modern world, of urban living, of city life, of commuting, of the job itself, of the stresses of the job and of paying bills and the kids and everything, this really creates a very intense situation for the nervous system that maybe was not as intense when we were in nature. Of course, there were other types of dangers in nature, but we tend to pile on these technologies, including, TV, which can be very pleasurable to watch a movie.
Yeah.
But if you're having a negative news cycle on, it just increases your stress.
Yep.
Social media, too much screen time on social media.
Right.
It's great to stay connected with some friends, but then you're scrolling for hours, and it dysregulates the nervous system.
Yep.
And so I think we have to be aware of how like these synthetic innovations affect our organic technology and how it can dysregulate it. And I think then there's a personal responsibility to learn how to use these innovations. And that becomes even more important when they're implanted in our bodies.
Yeah, I think it's the primitive nature of the tools that we have we have to really watch their useful, like every tool has its boundaries of usefulness, and we have to be only with great awareness can we recognize like, oh, this is the boundary. After this, it's stop being useful. In fact, it start to be harmful for us. Like social media, everyone at the beginning looked great, awesome, we're all connected, entertaining, things like that. And then now we're recognizing that the screen time, the type of content that we're consuming, all of that affects negatively us.
Yeah. So I think, when we talk about a vision of the future, not only is it like a visual representation of what we want, but it's also about like the systems that underpin it, like that drive us. Like, what are the economic systems? What are the economic systems that create addictive social media? And why are these algorithms so addictive to catch your eyeballs, to sell more advertising dollars? And so can we get away from those types of models into more, let's say, heart-centered types of ways of living, which are better for the nervous system? And so I think that's the vision of the future as well. Otherwise, we're going to be in front of a screen all day long.
For sure, yeah. I mean, it might not be a screen that we think of. It could really be like visions in your mind. That could be the future. What's the word? Like a future platform of consuming information. If it's all like embedded straight into your brain, and instead of like looking at a screen, you're, um, um, yeah, it's tricky. Like what? How far can we push this? How far can we allow technology to intrude on our being? Like, do we allow us to embed microchips in our brain and let the whoever is running that operating system be able to like show images into our brain? Because then we're getting more and more vulnerable to some kind of like um, um, bad actors acting on our behalf or something, or like stealing our thoughts or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're not that far from it.
Yeah.
I've seen something where you might be looking at an image,
Yeah.
and you have electrodes, and the electrodes show what image you're looking at. So you're looking at an elephant.
Yeah.
The electrodes are kind of saying, well, it looks like they're looking at an elephant.
Yeah.
So this might also mean that you're dreaming of something, and you'll get a printout in the morning of
That's right.
what you were looking at.
That's right. Yeah. I think they're potentially, I mean, it's a very powerful and dangerous modality, like tool that humans are working on. I see the benefit, like great benefits of something like that is when you can allow other people to visit your visions and visit your dreams, and you don't have to be, let's say, a software developer or like a video game developer to be able to create an immersive experience for somebody else. All you got to do is implant the chip, or wear some kind of hat to be able to so you can interpret your visions into a full experience that you can then like say, hey, I would love for you to try this. Like, this is some spaces that I visit, and you can blow someone's mind with what the experiences that you go through. And that could also be a bridge between the spiritual domain and the physical domain, because if it's a fully immersive experience, that is the closest thing to an actual experience, to like really show people what it is like to be a spirit, or what is it like to be a the whole universe is you, or something like that. Like, you can really create experiences that put people into perspectives from which they really understand. Like, let's say when astronauts go to space and they look at the Earth, they are having a very new, novel experience of the global human race. That we're all just one big race here. And the senses that they're using are mainly visual. I mean, they're just looking at the Earth. They're not really like doing, I mean, yes, they're on the spaceship and no gravity type, zero gravity type space. But I think the main experience is that they recognizing that what they're looking at is a real thing, and that gives them that perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it might be interesting to understand what it is that people are dreaming about.
Mm-hmm.
Or right now there's a lot of psychedelic research,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of understanding what is the psychedelic space that people are visualizing or experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
and how much common space exists between different people. Are they
Yep.
having are they seeing the same things?
For sure.
Basically.
I think that would be an amazing, interesting research to map out mental space of humans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, either through dream work or psychedelic.
For sure.
What is going on?
And be able to put the goggles and visit someone else's visions, and like, wow, they're having this type of experience. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. What else would you potentially like? So we've talked a little bit before the recording about potential intentions or what else we can discuss here. Is there something that you've thought of to point out and to bring up during this conversation that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I think something that's on my mind is, how do we create conscious leadership for a better planet? And, so I think conscious businesses come from conscious leaders, and conscious leaders come from people who do the inner work.
Mm-hmm.
And as we start to see that in the world, I think we start to see a few more things. We start to see more communal types of living, like communities become more important,
Mm-hmm.
and we see communitarian types of lifestyles. And I think we also start to see new types of economic models that go beyond what we've experienced, beyond neoliberalism and capitalism, also beyond socialism and communism, into new territory like circular economy. And there are many of these donut economics, degrowth models, other types of models. I think we might see more of that. I think there's interesting with cryptocurrencies, how that might play into it. So it's a very exciting time to be alive. I mean, we chose a very exciting time to be on this planet with so much innovation, and to see how that plays out.
And you think that excitement throughout time, if you put it on the graph, it's not an upward trending thing
The
over
excitement
time?
itself,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think it's like a hockey stick. Like
I think so
things
too.
are like so much, and I think AI accelerates that hockey stick.
Yeah.
And I think this is the true, let's say, like danger of AI, is that because it accelerates everything, all industries,
Mm-hmm.
this means that there's more energy consumption.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the AI itself, the computer itself, consumes more
Yeah.
energy, but it makes everything so much more efficient
Yeah.
that therefore the demand on energy is great.
Yeah.
So if you think of like agriculture can be more efficient, well then there's like more agricultural machines using more energy to do the efficient job. So like when you multiply that across all industries, suddenly we're using up more energy. So I think with AI, we also need to become more conscious of what types of energy are we using. Can you use more green types of energy? I think this is where the real danger of AI is.
Like the example of the food production, I tend to think that with more advanced technology, we'll use less energy to produce food, not more energy. Assuming that we have the same amount of population, which we see that the trend is actually downward, like we will be going down in the population numbers.
Well, like think about it this way. If by using AI you become more efficient,
Yeah.
by using AI and automation,
Yeah.
it means that you're regaining a few hours every day because you're having AI do that job for you.
Right.
And so with this additional time, what do? Well, you might get in your car and drive around more. You might take your family out for a little trip. And so, whereas before you wouldn't have been using that energy in your car, now you are because you have more time. And so when you think about how this happens, multiplied across the whole population, there's more demand for energy. So that's what I mean.
There's more things to do with your time, and you'll be converting that into some kind of like action in the world that will probably require extra energy.
Probably, yeah. Not always. You might go out for a bike ride,
right?
Or you might take your car, or you might take your boat out.
Right. Oh, and then how do you envision with AI automating most jobs? Maybe new jobs will be created. How do you see a potential future in which there might be no jobs? Is there a version of that?
Then other types of economic models become important, like universal basic income.
Yep.
If there are no jobs, you still have to pay for certain things for the rent.
Yep.
And so there needs to be some kind of income from something. Do I actually think there will be no jobs? No, I think there are certain jobs that for a long time still will still be done by humans. And many jobs require actually a physical presence that, like robots can't replace. And so you have to be really advanced androids in order to be able to do some of those things. Will that come one day? Yeah, probably, maybe. Who knows? It's so hard to conceive of a world with no jobs, because that is such deeply ingrained programming education that I've had. And this is my paradigm of the world, is that there are people that you need to go and get a job to pay your bills. It's hard to conceive of a world without that and what that might look like. But I think it obviously could be possible. And can we then convert that time that we would be working into other productive uses of time? Even productivity itself is a deep programming and conditioning, the belief that we have to be productive at all times, and the guilt that we get when we're not being productive. Like we take a vacation that's a little bit too long, and we start to feel guilty about that. That itself is a complete fallacy. Like, let's say maybe a few thousand years ago, it was totally okay to lay under a palm tree and not do anything except for the hunt for food, right? And so there's no like real reason to have to be productive other than you have to pay your bills. So that's a complete fallacy. So in the future, can we be without jobs? Yeah. So what would you do? Would you create art, music? Well, how would you fill up that time?
Right.
I think that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I also see the trend. I'm sure you agree with me. Humans have been collectively spending more and more time in a digital space, in the digital domain. So I feel like a lot of that extra time will go into people exploring new experiences in a digital domain, actually.
Yes. So we will be entertained to death. We'll be
right
in one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. And which brings to the point where media is continuing to be an instrumental tool to steer people's perspective and viewpoints on the world. The more time they have to consume media, the more their opinions will be formed or shaped by media.
Yes, and decentralized media, thanks to social media. So it's no longer a centralized type of broadcasting media. It's now everybody becomes their own media brand and property.
Right.
And
that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So having more, I invite everyone to consider starting their own show of any kind, either audio, video, and share their voice, share their ideas. Not only because somebody will find their content and watch it, and that's certainly an important and the main point of it, but also as a projection of your energy into the world, as just your contribution on an energetic level, just sharing your voice, spelling it and saying it out loud already has an impact on the physical world.
Absolutely. It's developing your throat chakra of expression of how what you say in the world, how you say it, and how you show up actually in the world. Your self-expression is so important. And, Kirill, I really want to congratulate you, acknowledge you, recognize you.
Thank you
for what you've built here. Your studio is stunning. It's amazing. The technology here is amazing. And also it creates such a focal point, like a focused concentration, like a zone. Like I felt like I've been in a zone for.
Yeah. It creates like this tunnel vision. We're just here because you can't really look, like the lights are pretty bright on the side, so you almost forced to look straight into the center.
It creates an incredible type of concentration. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think that's a great way to wrap up our beautiful dialogue. Thank you again for finding the time to stopping by and sharing your thoughts and visions. And I'm sure we can do it again at some point in the future with some updated viewpoints and ideas that we've gathered through life experience as things progress.
Thank you, Kirill. It's such a privilege and honor to be here. Thank you for
Yeah.
spending this time with me. And it's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Great. I think that's a wrap. Anything that you would like to say as as a recorded little segment or phrase, or think look at it from the perspective of your followers, people that know you potentially personally, something that you would like to share with them as an insightful little phrase or something like that, because we've kind of that was the end of that, but since it's still rolling, there's an opportunity to say whatever you would like to say.
Okay, let me give this a shot and see what comes.
It comes through. Exactly.
One of the quotes that has most affected me has been what Rumi said, that yesterday I was clever and I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, I just need to change myself. I think this is a very deep quote with a lot of meaning. And as you grow older, you start to understand the depth of this. And truly, I believe that when we each work on ourselves to learn who we are, who our authentic self is, and we start to show up in the world like that, our world starts to change as well. And we start to see the change that we want. We become that change that we want to see in the world. So
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thanks again.